First, Barbara Payton. When Barbara Payton was on her deathbed, she reportedly made a heartbreaking admission. She had squandered her talent and thrown away a career that once promised so much. Once hailed as a mesmerizing actress with a sultry charm, she had soared to brief stardom in the early 1950s, with roles in films like Trapped and Kiss, Tomorrow Goodbye. During Hollywood's golden era, she became known for her bold persona, daring to break norms both on and off screen. Yet, behind the glamorous facade, her life was fraught with scandal and heartbreak. Her reckless lifestyle, marked by turbulent relationships and financial ruin, soon overshadowed her undeniable talent. Friends who remained by her side in her final days later revealed that Payton felt betrayed by an industry that had once promised her the world, only to discard her when she faltered. She lamented the opportunities she had wasted and the people she had pushed away, acknowledging how the studio system had exploited her beauty and bravado for box office gain, then abandoned her when she was no longer profitable. Rumors circulated that, near the end, she sought redemption but never found full absolution. Payton's final moments were a sobering reminder of Hollywood's ruthless nature, a world that celebrated its stars until they no longer shined. Second, Bela Lugosi. Immortalized by his chilling portrayal of Count Dracula, Bela Lugosi once stood at the pinnacle of Hollywood horror. His piercing gaze and exotic accent became the very essence of nightmare, captivating audiences who craved the macabre. Yet behind this eerie persona lay a man tormented by an industry that bound him to one unforgettable role. In the twilight of his life, Lugosi yearned for dramatic range, roles that could challenge him beyond the crypts and capes. Instead, he found himself locked in a cycle of low-budget horror films, forever a prisoner of his own chilling legacy. Financial woes dogged him, fueled by Hollywood's reluctance to see beyond the box office success of his bloodthirsty image. Those closest to him later disclosed that in his final days, the Hungarian-born actor spoke with deep regret about the path his career had taken. He lamented the missed chances to portray complex characters, believing he could offer so much more than the spine-tingling performances that made him famous. Pain and desperation weighed on him, a testament to the cruel duality of stardom, once lauded, now forgotten. On his deathbed, the pride and elegance that once defined him were overshadowed by sorrow. Lugosi's whispered admissions painted a haunting portrait of ambition unfulfilled and the crushing burden of a role he could never fully escape. 3. Bette Davis. When Bette Davis reached her last days, she reportedly admitted to those closest to her that the price of greatness had been solitude. Famed for her intense performances in films like All About Eve, she was as uncompromising in her personal life as she was on screen. Throughout a career marked by critical acclaim, she set exacting standards that few could meet, creating tensions both on set and at home. In her later years, Davis confided in friends that her unwavering perfectionism had isolated her from many who had once stood by her. Family relationships grew cold under the weight of her unrelenting pursuit of excellence, and long-standing feuds with colleagues left her feeling bitter and alone. Toward the end, she spoke candidly of the regret she felt over pushing people away, confessing that her quest for professional triumph came at the cost of genuine connection. The sharp wit and fierce determination that made her a legend also forged an invisible barrier, one that she could never fully dismantle. As her health declined, she recognized the toll it had taken, leaving her with a lonely acceptance of the sacrifices she had made for her art. 4. Loretta Young. Amid the hush of her later years, Loretta Young, famed for her poised and devout public persona, laid bare a secret that had defined her life. With a mixture of remorse and relief, she revealed the truth of her daughter Judy Lewis's parentage. The child was fathered by Clark Gable, her co-star in The Call of the Wild. Hollywood's rigid moral codes had forced her to disguise Judy's paternity, fabricating an adoption story to preserve her pristine reputation. Young's hushed confessions spoke to the heartbreak of a woman who had sacrificed honesty for the sake of her image, exposing how the gilded facade of stardom often concealed searing personal compromises. Cinquième, Clark Gable. Clark Gable, immortalized as Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind, embodied rugged charm and raw masculinity. Yet behind this confident veneer lay unresolved secrets that weighed heavily on him. In whispered moments, he confided remorse over keeping private his paternity of Loretta Young's daughter, Judy Lewis. The fear of tarnishing his star image had, for years, held him back from publicly embracing her. This unspoken truth gnawed at him, adding a quiet sorrow to an otherwise larger-than-life legacy. As time slipped away, Gable confessed to friends that he wished he had summoned the courage to acknowledge Judy openly, lamenting the emotional void his silence had created. Struggling with his own conscience, he admitted that a man celebrated for his bold, irresistible persona had faltered in one of life's most personal acts of courage. In those final reflections, he recognized that the screen hero had never fully reconciled the man behind the myth. Sixth, Errol Flynn. The dashing star of The Adventures of Robin Hood, Errol Flynn personified adventure both on camera and off. With a devil-may-care grin, he barreled through Hollywood's golden era, indulging in every thrill it offered. Yet in the waning days of his life, Flynn privately acknowledged the chaos of his relentless pursuits. "I've lived too fast," he reportedly confessed, recognizing how his unapologetic lifestyle had overshadowed his genuine acting gifts. Despite early critical praise, personal scandals, including high-profile romances and court cases, often took center stage in the tabloids, eclipsing the nuance and vigor he brought to the screen. In his final moments, those close to him described a man grappling with regret, aware that the world might remember him more for controversy than craft. The real Flynn, the one craving respect and understanding, felt lost behind the larger-than-life persona he had cultivated. With the specter of time running out, he voiced the anguish of knowing he would never fully escape the legend he had helped create. 7. Joan Crawford. In her final days, Joan Crawford, Hollywood's emblem of steely glamour, found her carefully built empire of discipline and control slipping away. Behind closed doors, she confessed a regret that ran far deeper than any on-screen rivalry: her relationship with her children. Crawford acknowledged that her unrelenting pursuit of perfection had frayed the very bonds she cherished, distancing her from those who once adored her. Friends recount how she spoke in hushed tones of a profound insecurity, a gnawing fear that her legend would fade in a world where youth and beauty reigned supreme. As her health declined, Crawford's iron will gave way to poignant honesty, revealing a woman fraught with anxieties about being forgotten by the machine she had served so diligently. 8. Frances Farmer. Hollywood once held out the promise of stardom for Frances Farmer, but from the very start, she seemed determined to fight its constraints. Fiercely independent, she clashed with studio executives who valued easy compliance over artistic expression. Disillusionment set in quickly. She saw an industry less concerned with talent than with molding an actor into a marketable image. When her outspoken nature led to conflict, Farmer found herself labeled difficult, a reputation that shadowed her every step. In the following years, she recounted the harrowing treatment she endured in psychiatric institutions, insisting that her rebellion against conformity was used as justification for cruel forms of therapy. Friends remember her final reflections as tinged with both sorrow and defiance. She remained steadfast in her belief that Hollywood's demands were stifling rather than liberating. Yet there was a fragile kind of contentment she uncovered away from the limelight. While the scars of her battles never fully faded, she discovered a quieter life, offered more solace than she had ever known. Her closing words revealed a woman who had glimpsed the promise of fame, only to realize it came wrapped in chains of expectations she refused to wear. Ninth, George Reeves. When children looked up at the sky and shouted for Superman, George Reeves was the face they saw. And yet, behind that iconic costume, the actor wrestled with a deep unease. Early in his career, he had shown range and promise, fueled by dreams of intense dramatic roles that might one day cement his standing as a serious performer. The Superman image, however, clung to him like an unbreakable spell, overshadowing every ambition he harbored. As the years wore on, he grew frustrated by an industry reluctant to cast him as anything but the Man of Steel. Whispers among friends spoke of his growing anxiety and the sense that, no matter how he tried, he could not escape a legacy that felt more curse than blessing. Some close to him said he feared for his safety in the days leading up to his death, though the exact nature of these threats remains elusive. In those last hours, he allegedly yearned for a chance to be seen anew, to be recognized not just as a superhero, but as a flesh-and-blood artist with depths far beyond the cape. 10th, Gloria Graham. Under the lights of film noir, Gloria Graham projected a smoldering presence that made her unforgettable. Yet off-camera, her life churned in ways that only fueled the tabloids: multiple marriages, rumors of scandal, and a reputation for courting controversy. Over time, the turbulence of her personal affairs began to overshadow her talents, threatening to dismantle the respect she had fought to earn. In her later years, Graham spoke with an unsettling mix of pride and sorrow, acknowledging how her private life had often stolen the spotlight from her artistry. She wished audiences could see beyond the headlines to appreciate the nuance and vulnerability she brought to her roles. Confidants recall her final ruminations as longing for a legacy defined by skill rather than scandal. Though she wore her regrets with a quiet grace, the burden of past choices weighed heavily, leaving her final days colored by an aching desire to be recognized for more than the tales circulating in gossip columns. For Graham, fame had never come with the security she craved, and her closing words revealed an actress who understood that the truth of her craft was buried beneath layers of rumor and regret. Unbur, Greta Garbo, the Swedish Sphinx of Hollywood. Greta Garbo dazzled audiences with her magnetic performances in classics like Camille and Ninotchka. From the start, her cool elegance and ethereal screen presence set her apart. She quickly rose to the pinnacle of stardom, her mysterious aura only intensified by her famous desire to be alone. Yet behind the reclusive facade, Garbo's soul was reportedly weighed down by a deeper longing. Friends close to the actress hinted at her conflicted feelings in her later years. She regretted the long isolation she had chosen, and occasionally wondered if she should have embraced a more public life. Though she'd once found solace in solitude, time made her question the price of privacy. Whispers suggest she pondered whether she had sacrificed too much of her personal freedom for the sake of maintaining an enigmatic image. Garbo was careful to guard her inner world, but in the final chapters of her life, she reportedly confided in those she trusted, expressing wistfulness over the paths untaken, lost opportunities to reconnect with fans, to venture beyond the shadows of her apartment. Such admissions, only rumored and rarely confirmed, recast Garbo's legacy in a poignant light. Rather than the distant goddess on a pedestal, she emerged as a deeply human figure, someone who, after capturing 12. Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr, celebrated for her striking beauty in films like Algiers and Samson and Delilah, once epitomized the glamour of Hollywood's golden age. Born Hedwig Eva Maria Kiesler, she became renowned for a kind of screen presence that directors adored and audiences found irresistible. Yet behind the captivating facade lay a brilliant mind seldom acknowledged in her lifetime. A co-inventor of groundbreaking frequency-hopping technology, an innovation that would one day underpin modern wireless communication, Lamarr felt overshadowed by her looks and undervalued for her intellect. In her later years, Lamarr reportedly admitted that she often resented being confined to roles that merely showcased her appearance. She lamented the industry's narrow vision, recalling that studio executives refused to see her as more than a sultry star. Years of typecasting wore on her spirit, and by the time her career waned, she found herself questioning whether the sacrifices of stardom had truly been worth it. Confidants revealed that Lamarr's final reflections carried a note of quiet bitterness. She felt robbed of the recognition she deserved for her scientific contributions, a frustration that only deepened as time passed and her cinematic fame faded. These revelations, made public through interviews and memoirs, have since reshaped her legacy, shining a light on an extraordinary duality: the stunning screen icon who also happened to be a brilliant inventor. 13. Ingrid Bergman. Ingrid Bergman, the luminous star of Casablanca and Notorious, captivated audiences with her natural grace and unwavering sincerity on screen. Her roles reflected a quiet strength that endeared her to millions, making her one of Hollywood's most revered actresses. Yet, beneath the accolades and adoration lay personal choices that would spark a worldwide scandal. Bergman's affair with Italian director Roberto Rossellini, which began while she was still married, sent shockwaves through conservative post-war America and led to her temporary exile from Hollywood. In her later years, the actress reportedly acknowledged the profound impact that scandal had on her professional trajectory. Castigated by the press and condemned by moralists, Bergman was forced to rebuild her career and reputation overseas. Though she eventually found her way back to Hollywood's good graces, winning further acclaim and Academy Awards, she confided to close friends and family that the personal toll was immense. She also expressed regret over the time she had missed with her children, a consequence of juggling far-flung film sets and the upheaval of her personal life. Despite her unwavering commitment to her craft, Bergman admitted that motherhood had often taken a reluctant back seat to her career ambitions. After her passing, these private confessions emerged in interviews and memoirs, recasting Bergman not just as a cinematic icon, but as a woman forced to navigate the conflicting demands of fame, family, and love. 14. Judy Garland. For Judy Garland, the voice that had dazzled the world with Over the Rainbow carried a far weightier burden behind the scenes. Near the end, she confided in those closest to her that she had never truly lived for herself. Garland admitted she felt like a puppet, controlled by demanding studio executives whose relentless schedules and unrealistic expectations scarred her both physically and emotionally. The spiral of addiction and financial turmoil weighed heavily on her heart, and she feared she would be memorialized solely for these struggles rather than for her unparalleled talent. In her most vulnerable moments, Garland reportedly lamented how fame had robbed her of any sense of normalcy, praying that her fans would remember the warmth of her performances instead of the wounds that haunted her final hours. Quince. Lupe Velez. Lupe Velez, often celebrated as the Mexican Spitfire, lit up the silver screen in the 1920s and 1930s with her dynamic performances and fiery persona. Despite her vibrant public image, Velez's personal life was marked by turmoil, including a turbulent relationship with fellow actor Harold Mars. Rumors of an unplanned pregnancy added another layer of distress, fueling her despair in her final days. Friends recalled that Velez felt torn between her heritage and the Hollywood system, which often exoticized her talents instead of celebrating them. Her sudden death in 1944 sent shockwaves through the industry, officially attributed to complications from sleeping medication. However, speculation has persisted for decades that Velez's end might have been staged to preserve her glamorous image. Whispers of carefully arranged details in her home suggested an attempt to craft a final tableau befitting her star status. In haunting echoes of her comedic yet passionate on-screen characters, Velez reportedly left notes expressing profound sorrow over the direction her life had taken, lamenting the ways she had been misunderstood. Today, she is remembered both for her feisty spirit and the lingering questions surrounding her passing. Lupe Velez's story underlines the intense pressures faced by women of color in early Hollywood, a stark reminder of how stardom can become both a dream and a cage, even after her passing. 16th, Margaret Gibson. Margaret Gibson was a silent film actress whose fleeting fame in the early 20th century belied a hidden world of secrets and intrigue. Although never a leading lady, she appeared in numerous silent-era productions, her delicate features and expressive eyes capturing early Hollywood's fascination. Yet behind the camera's glow, Gibson lived a turbulent life, marked by multiple arrests for extortion and suspicious dealings that frequently put her at odds with the law. On her deathbed in 1964, a shocking confession spilled forth. She claimed involvement in the 1922 murder of director William Desmond Taylor, a crime that had bewildered Hollywood for decades. Gibson's startling admission reignited a scandal once thought consigned to the annals of Tinseltown lore. While official records were inconclusive, her words fanned the flames of suspicion, suggesting she had been present, if not actively complicit, on that fateful night. Friends described her final hours as both remorseful and strangely resolute, as though unburdening herself of a truth she had carried for far too long. To this day, Margaret Gibson's name remains inextricably linked to one of Hollywood's darkest mysteries. Some believe her statement was a last attempt at notoriety, while others suspect it was a desperate plea for absolution. In either case, her final confession continues to haunt film history. Even decades later, her whispered truths spark endless speculation. Siebzehnte Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich's allure was legendary, her name synonymous with sophistication and daring style throughout Hollywood's golden age. Rising to international stardom with films like The Blue Angel and Morocco, she became a paragon of cool confidence and seductive mystique. Yet in private, Dietrich grappled with the consequences of her meticulously curated image, admitting in her later years that her relentless drive for perfection had come at a steep cost. As her health declined, she retreated to her Paris apartment, shielding herself from prying eyes and the unforgiving press. Behind closed doors, Dietrich confessed to feeling profoundly isolated by the very aura she had worked so hard to create. Letters and diary entries revealed her disillusionment with an industry that prized reinvention over authenticity, leaving her perpetually on guard. She also spoke of her strained relationship with her daughter, Maria Riva, who had penned a revealing memoir that exposed the fragile underpinnings of their family dynamic. For Dietrich, the chasm between the glamorous persona and the woman beneath the glitter was a source of both pride and sorrow. In her final moments, It is said that Dietrich clung to the legacy she had forged, refusing to surrender the mystique she had perfected. Even as regrets surfaced, she remained an icon, her confessions offering only fleeting glimpses behind the celebrated facade. Ever enigmatic. 18. Mary Pickford. Mary Pickford, once hailed as America's sweetheart, spent her final years in quiet seclusion at Pickfair, the famed mansion she had shared with Douglas Fairbanks. Despite her status as one of the most influential figures of the silent era, Pickford reportedly confided deep sorrow over the isolation she felt when talkies rendered her style obsolete. In her last days, she spoke with surprising candor about the estrangement from her family, admitting that her lifelong devotion to the film industry had overshadowed her personal connections. Even more revealing were the glimpses she offered of her private battle with alcohol, a struggle she had masked behind her enduring legacy as a silver screen icon. By the time of her death, Pickford carried a profound regret for having drifted away from Hollywood and the community she had helped create, leaving behind a haunting reminder of how swiftly fame could turn to solitude. 19th. Peter Lorre. Peter Lorre, the unforgettable character actor famed for his unsettling roles in films like M and the Maltese Falcon, harbored regrets that few suspected. As he faced his final moments, Lorre reportedly lamented the persistent typecasting that confined him to sinister or eccentric parts, a fate he felt stripped him of the opportunity to explore a broader range of characters, especially heroes. Despite his iconic status, he confessed to long-standing financial troubles, the result of poor compensation deals and the industry's tendency to undervalue character actors. These revelations offered a poignant contrast to the suave, eerie personas he portrayed on screen. In reality, he yearned for recognition and creative fulfillment. His deathbed confessions underscored the frustration of an immense talent relegated to the margins, painting a portrait of a man longing for the kind of cinematic roles he was never allowed to embody. 20. Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth, immortalized by her sultry performance in Gilda, became emblematic of Hollywood glamour in the 1940s. Yet, in the quiet lucidity that sometimes emerged during her battle with Alzheimer's disease, Hayworth revealed a profound sense of heartbreak. She spoke of the studio-enforced transformations that molded her into the love goddess, from painful electrolysis to forced dye jobs, all to fit an image that wasn't truly her own. Despite her fame, Hayworth confided a lingering feeling of being underappreciated, as her talents were often overshadowed by her allure. In poignant recollections to those closest to her, she expressed regret over multiple failed marriages and the personal sacrifices demanded by the spotlight. The raw honesty of her final admissions painted a picture of a woman consumed by the very myth of glamour she embodied, a timeless star whose private anguish paralleled her public radiance. 21st. Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead, renowned for her husky voice, sharp wit, and unapologetic flamboyance, spent much of her final days in a haze of reflection. She reportedly confided to close friends that the hedonistic lifestyle she had so proudly embraced had, in fact, cost her dearly. Bankhead regretted the roles she had dismissed on a whim, opportunities that could have established her as one of the era's most formidable actresses. Equally painful were her admissions about the relationships she had sabotaged. Her flair for drama and independence often drove away those who cared most for her. As her health faded, Bankhead acknowledged a profound loneliness, the price of years spent living by her own rules. Yet even in those last moments, her trademark candor remained. She joked that she had lived life on her own terms, a bittersweet refrain from a star who realized too late the personal toll of her brazen defiance. 22nd, Veronica Lake. Veronica Lake, once celebrated for her iconic peekaboo hairstyle and sultry screen presence, found her stardom dimmed by the 1950s. In the obscurity of her final years, she revealed to close confidants that her difficult behavior on set and struggles with drinking had hastened her downfall. Lake admitted that a sense of alienation haunted her from the start. She never truly felt at home in the Hollywood machine that prized her looks over her deeper aspirations. Over time, this emotional dissonance fueled the cycles of self-sabotage that eroded her once bright career. Yet, despite losing her fortune and public acclaim, Lake reportedly discovered a measure of peace in that simpler existence. Freed from the expectations of fame, she spent her last days as quietly as she had once lived under the glare of spotlights. Her final confessions a sober testament to the double-edged nature of celebrity.